Welcome to What I Meant to Say, where we discuss parenting, relationships, and wisdom that can be passed down through generations. I am so excited. I woke up this morning. I have been looking forward to this podcast for God knows how long. I'm so excited to have Emily Hightower here today, resilience coach and education director at ShiftAdapt. And I cannot wait for people to hear more about what you guys are doing, because it has been so fundamentally life-shifting for me, the way that life comes in. So thank you for being here. I'm so grateful.
Thank you so much. It's so fun to get to see you again and, revisit some of our conversations from our work together. It's just been too long.
Yeah, no, I was telling my friend this morning that, you're one of the great things about social media for me, because we would be friends, I feel like, if the miles were not the issue. And I love that about social media, because it connects you with people like that. And you're definitely one of those for me. So thank you.
Thank you. I feel the same way. I know we'd be hanging out all the time.
Yeah, exactly.
No, that's a California surfer chick. And I am not her when I try to surf. It's really entertaining, but I love it. I get to come to Cali now for work now and again with open water and with Brian, and I get it. It's cool out there.
Yeah. So let's dig into it. And I want to get so deep on all of these topics that are so intricately connected to our biology and the way that we see life. But if you could tell people one thing about how their nervous system is relating to the way they see their life, what do you want them to know?
Ooh, what a good question. One thing to help people understand how their nervous system relates to life is
the way they see life, see their lives. Yeah.
That reality is not objective. It is subjective. And if you could think of your third eye in the forehead like a movie projector, it's projecting out into so-called reality things from our own conditioning, our belief system, and our brain looks for evidence to support what it already believes. So the world that we experience and see is not necessarily reality. And our nervous systems are wired for safety and predicting safety. So oftentimes we're looking for threats and we're looking for stories to support those threats. And the body is always present. It's irrationally present. So the body is going to respond to what we think is really going on in the world that we're seeing and busy believing. And then often the nervous system experiences a threat response to stories and experiences that sometimes are very real, all very valid because we're busy believing them. But oftentimes we end up justifying our pain because the nervous system is reinforcing this is scary, this is frustrating. And so we can get really, really stuck if we don't learn how to question the story, regulate our nervous systems, and connect to the wisdom of this intelligent body that's just waiting for us to be present.
Yeah. One of the things that, and full disclosure, you and I work together. I absolutely loved the coaching that I've done with you, and it's been so integral to the way that I see my day now. Mm-hmm. But, at the heart of my passion for life is this concept of generational healing. Mm-hmm. And yet the very thing that I've realized over the last, so many months and years is that generational healing is really the learning how to stay present. Mm-hmm. The more we learn how to stay present, the more we can we heal and we help people around us heal.
Yes. Big stuff.
Yeah. And you help me see how reinforcing those stories, what that is doing for you or not doing for you, mm-hmm. to move forward with a new story in your life. But what are some of the things that you help people, practically speaking? How do you help them access that presence?
Well, thank you for doing that. I love your purpose with that. And what an opportunity for all of us to consider. What does it mean to break generational conditioning and trauma And that ability to be present, excuse me, it really speaks to learning how to read the signals in real time, both within your own body and within the environment. And that's always the first step. Is like, do you even know what your body is trying to tell you right now? And often we ignore the signs, like indulging in binge eating, binge watching, when our body isn't even hungry. That's an example of like, if you could just stop for a second and listen to the body, or understanding that, a racing heart and fidgety hands and sweaty palms is not necessarily justification for how scary the thing is that's causing the reaction. But if you can tune into the body and go, wow, I'm spinning up into fight or flight, and learn then how to regulate that response, not to fix everything, but to connect, to truly have your own back and go, I'm going to meet my body where it is first and recruit more resources so that I can think more clearly, connect to my truth before I act on this situation. And that practice alone helps us kind of weave into the other piece of the work, which is more top down, looking at those repetitive thoughts. Are they actually true? So I love that work of finding out people's stories, not to purge ourselves of the stories and kind of fixate on them, but to find those little activation points that have meaning to you. And how do you know? Because your body tells you. And then we can do some cool work around questioning what story is activated and really questioning that.
Yeah, I love that. And, for the people that are listening that haven't done as much work to understand their nervous system, can you back up a little bit and explain the sympathetic and parasympathetic? And
Yeah.
we'll get into the window of tolerance, but that, just for a basic understanding of how our body is.
Yeah, sure. Well, we have this autonomic nervous system that is there to protect us and keep us alive and to heal our bodies unconsciously. So when you wake up in the morning and you open your eyes, you're getting a dose of arousal. That's the sympathetic branch of the autonomic system. And the sympathetic branch contains arousal mechanisms to help us be alive, but also in survival situations to recruit the fight, flight, freeze response. The opposing branch of that, they work synergistically together, is the parasympathetic. So the longer word, parasympathetic, is the branch of the autonomic system, the subconscious system, that used to be taught as the brakes to fight or flight. But what it really is this dynamic, active, healing branch that is responsible for digesting your breakfast burrito and healing tissue and, cleaning out damaged proteins in the body, helping the liver make vitamins. Like the parasympathetic branch has to be turned on in order for vital processes inside of our bodies to function really well. I won't get into the enteric, which is the third branch, which is the, mouth all the way down to the guts and out the other end. That's an entire tube of intelligent nervous system tissue that is the third branch of the autonomic and is often left out of the conversation. But what's important to know is that we are always operating on a spectrum of balance between these parts of ourselves. We're either operating in a lot of sympathetic tone, and that would feel like high arousal, some nervous energy. If we get too far in that range, we go into real fight or flight response and even panic. We can go into low dysregulation in the parasympathetic, where we are in more of a flop response, a low freeze. And that's a survival strategy of playing dead. And there's a physiological effect here where systems shut down for survival. So you can slow things down too much. And I shouldn't say too much. That response is there for a reason. And then you can have a freeze, which is a blend of both.
And it's different for everybody, right? I mean, maybe that gets into the window of tolerance, right? But how, I'm thinking about your life and the things that you do on a daily or, weekly, monthly basis, from the chill of yin yoga all the way through, flow to but skiing and kayaking on wild rivers. And I'm seeing how your life, the things you do, have allowed you to grow that window of tolerance.
Mm.
But I love seeing life play out in the things and how you live it.
Yeah.
But everybody's got a different window of tolerance, and that can be grown. Is that, yeah.
Absolutely. And I think this is where the work gets so interesting, is that we cannot identify external events, circumstances. We can't identify an external metric for, like, when we do this, like public speaking, you're going to get anxious and flip out, because it's different for everyone. So the work is about tuning into yourself and stripping away some of the moral failing associated with these natural states like anxiety, depression. Of course, everyone wants to be rested, ready, perform in flow states. To master the ability to toggle your state being the appropriate blend of nervous system tone in the sympathetic and parasympathetic, being able to toggle your arousal state to match the situational demand, and then to read when you get dysregulated and not judge yourself for it, but instead to go, oh, I can learn and implement some very powerful tools to support my intelligence system to widen my tolerance to stressors. And our window of tolerance represents how much stress you can tolerate at either end. And if all we're doing is pushing ourselves into high arousal states of go, 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 and not recovering deeply and well, then the edges are going to find you. The window of tolerance is going to narrow, and things unrelated, the things you think are causing you stress, will start to stress you out, because your nervous system is less nimble. Your whole body is less responsive when you undergo chronic stress without self-regulation.
Absolutely. And therein lies your skill of stress course and everything you guys do at ShiftAdapt. And that was a beautiful intro into really digging in with what you and Brian are doing at ShiftAdapt, because I want people to understand how to access this.
Yeah.
I've watched you guys grow it over, I guess I heard Brian in 2017 for the first time. And then through that, I found you. And the work you guys do with first responders and, all of every first responders and military veterans, all the way down to just everyone that's walking around every day trying to optimize their life.
Yeah.
I want people to understand what you're doing and how to get to you.
Thank you. Yeah. Well, I really am lucky that I met and get to work with Brian McKenzie. And we are a great yin-yang power duo that have evolved separately for 20 years before meeting. And then when we joined our work, we've synthesized a lot of concepts that have grown into things like our Shift Health mentorship. The mentorship that you and I shared was a first edition of that. We've rolled out Shift Health in the last 2 years. And so Brian has this gift with the science of metabolic health. And so he does the breathing gear system in a physical training environment. And he really understands how to test people, find the gaps in their health, and then push them in a direction that's going to make gains, even when they don't think it's what they want. So, getting outside of this box of like, fitness is an hour a day, click the box, do your training, and you'll live a healthy, happy life. Same philosophy of you've got to read your own body. And, my work is more in the trauma realm and is deeper into the neurology and the nervous system of deep recovery, but also how to deal with performance when it comes to things like performance anxiety. What kind of mental resources can we regain and recruit when we're at a nervous edge? And how can we challenge the stories and conditioning that make us feel so afraid of being our best, or so attached to the last time that we podiumed that's now infecting this moment, right? So I get really involved in that side of it. And together, we do have Shift. We have an app with daily training, with a Breathe Move program. And then we do events and private coaching for people that want to really go deeper with their own journey.
It's amazing, and I love the way you guys synthesize everything, because the more I learn in this space, it's not a check the box, and it's not one platform of things that work. The integration is so, it just keeps going deeper, and you start to see how everything is connected. And that's why I didn't even have a full grasp on the quote, your biology becomes your psychology, which I think I heard from you guys first. But that concept of only, I think it's 6.7% of Americans are metabolically healthy. So when you think about that, I hate to say market, because it's gut-wrenching that that's a statistic, but how much improvement, how much people could improve out there when they get a hold of the things you guys are teaching. Because, wow, we are not in a good shape out there right now.
We are
People
not.
are hurting.
Yep, it is true. And it is a responsibility to share tools together wherever they are aligned and with integrity, wherever the tools are actually making a difference. This is a profound kind of movement that we're a small part of. There are lots of people starting to wake up to the power of metabolic health, nervous system health. And I love how Brian frames it as N=1. Like, you're the only factor in this experiment called your life. So here are these tools based in biology. Try them. We're not prescriptive. And that's a big thing for me in the breath world, because I've been a part of pranayama breathing since 2001. Before that, I got into breath work through trauma in emergency medicine and in whitewater kayak guiding, and just understanding how breath is so important to mastering state. But in the breath world right now, it's awesome that it's everywhere. But we have a responsibility to teach that it's not prescriptive, it's a practice. And only you can feel in your own body, if you have been guided to do so, to understand if the breath that you're learning and practicing is actually moving you in the right direction, because it's not the same for everyone. What works for you might spin one of your kids up into anxiety. What works for them might shut you down. So it's important to get the principles over methods approach. That's a huge anchor point to our work at Shift.
I love that, because I think one of the things that when I was starting out kind of learning how to heal, one of the first things that would enter my mind was, I'm doing it wrong. And then as soon as you think you're doing it wrong, if you battle with that perfectionistic side, you kind of just fall off of really learning what you're supposed to be learning in that moment. And so through the breath work and the courses I've taken with you guys and the work I've done with you, and then my own yoga practice and teacher training and all of that, I so appreciate what you're saying, because there is so much out there on do it this way. And one, you fall into that perfectionistic place, you won't get out of it what you can really access in your own body. It's amazing.
Perfectionism is such a bear. It's such a burden, and it's a survival strategy. Perfectionism comes from a really useful, good place where we learn that if we do good enough, we're going to get rewarded. And this concept of, there's a book called Punished by Rewards that every parent should read. I should reread it, because we're so encoded with the idea of, like, if I can, dangle the carrot and reward good behavior, it's like training a dog. My kid will, but oftentimes the reward ends up guiding them on a path that's maybe not even true for them, and can wire in this perfectionist mentality that disconnects us and disassociates us from our bodies, ourselves, the curiosity of play, the power of making mistakes, that they're not even mistakes. That's just called learning. And so shattering perfectionism is one of the most freeing opportunities in our culture that is out there, because everyone's touched by it a little, and some are driven by it. It's hard.
Absolutely. And I feel like it's hard as an adult, but in the world that the kids are growing up in, with the constant distraction and bombardment of comparison that comes with social media, it's ripe for so much just angst for these kids. I hear you, and it's really our job as parents to guide them, and not and we have to do that through our own practice, right? So what better place to start than work like this? Because if you have kids in your house, they're already battling it, and you have to be present to be able to help them and where they're growing up, because it's tough out there.
Right. We're all swimming in this water together, so it's hard to even point to the cause. So yeah, having that presence and ability to slow things down and help make less meaning of the compare despair game. And I think the best way to do that is to encourage exposure to nature without distraction, because our bodies are part of nature. We're part of something complex and very intelligent that uses nonverbal communication to process, grow, create. And that nonverbal, non-beta wave, I'm not listening to a podcast while I'm on a hike. You can do that, and anyone listening, if that's your jam. We don't want to take away anything from anyone, but just consider that there is this value to being silent and connected to your place that I think can help. I know I need it, but I believe that for our kids, it is an antidote to the compare despair game, because it gives you a sense of true belonging. Like, I'm using my breath while moving on this trail, and all around me are these other creatures living in this place where I actually physically am. And whether that's your dog or your friends or other hikers or birds or lizards or snakes, whatever, the track that you find, if you see deer poop, like those signs matter. And they have mattered for hundreds of thousands of years in our biology. We're supposed to be connected to a place. And so I want to get away from, in my own parenting, in my own life, and with my husband, who's an outdoor educator, it's like getting away from trying to create rules around screen time and trying to fight the thing, and instead fill the life with another way that can balance it out. And then we can all figure out for ourselves which one feels better without the shame and control. But we need exposure to that kind of connection to make that real.
Oh, that's such a beautiful message of meeting them where they are, and not shaming them for the place that they were born and the age that they're growing up in. But yeah, filling that space it's paramount, and it's so difficult. And I know you live in beautiful Colorado, and that you have access to so much, nature and beauty there, and there's so much authenticity in the way you live. I absolutely love it. But do you have any ideas for people out there that can, for their kids and even for themselves, just really be able to connect with nature if they're not in such an outdoor oriented place?
Yeah, it's such an important point. My husband did his master's in regenerative ag and outdoor education, and there was a lot of work around place-based connection. And when it came time for one of his thesis papers, he had to do a film project and an essay, and it was all about like documenting a powerful place. So all the students in his group did these like radical collections of all the cool places that they frankly are privileged to go to, myself included, right? It can be a privilege now, unfortunately, to access nature. And I encouraged, my husband's name is Brian, also different than my business partner, Brian. I encouraged Brian Hightower, like, what if you chose our little side yard as your place and you documented that? including the dog shit, the squirrels, the neighbor's cat that comes over. And so he did. And he had to sit in that place every day for a week at different times of day and take notes and do kind of like a field study. So out came the projects, right? And this guy went to Tibet and showed that. And this other person did like a canoe trip and blah. And Brian was like, well, here's our backyard. Here's how it changed over the week. Here's what I noticed, with the temperature, the wind, the clouds, the different species coming up over our fence to participate in our habitat, make nests in our tree, steal the nuts from the neighbor's yard, whatever. So I, humbly can't answer what it's like for people living in an inner city, because I haven't lived in a city since I was in Denver when I was 18. I'm 50 now, so I haven't lived in a city. But when I am in a city, I'm very moved and astounded by the place itself. So if you can look at the fact that we are nature, and I know for me, when I was just in the LA area or when I get to go to New York City, I walk. I get outside and I walk and walk and walk without distraction in my ears to be a part of the place. So you don't need a national forest or some plane ticket to Tibet to connect to nature. It's in the faucet when you do your dishes, the water that you're touching, the air you're breathing. We're not separate from the environment. So wherever you live, I think having a connection to your place is what moves movements like the urban food growing farming movement and community food sharing. And we are nature. So we don't need to escape ourselves to go find it.
Oh man, there are two things there that such a beautiful answer. But like, one, I'm realizing how much pain it gives me to realize how often people are walking around with these in their ears. And we're the AirPods, right? We are constantly being distracted by what we're taking in. And it's so much more prevalent even in the last like 2 to 3 years than it was, 5 years ago, 10 years ago. So it's like but I also feel like human beings are waking up, because there wouldn't be a pull for the kind of education that you guys are doing and the kind of conversations that are going on. So to watch people wake up to these, I am here, and be able to do the simple things that are like, no, just don't be distracted. Turn off the music, turn off the TV, and be where you are. I don't know if it's just the world that I'm accessing, but it does feel like there is a turn out there. And
I hope so. I know that for our family, this isn't like follow my lead. This is a struggle for us too. I am that girl at the dog park on my phone many mornings. I'm like, I'm going to catch up on some phone calls, and I catch myself, and I do compartmentalize sometimes and go, okay, well, I'm going to get the dog walked, take these phone calls, but I go deep and out in order to replenish that well. And right now I am investigating what we're talking about in my own life. Like, how can I peel it back one layer more and make it less compartmentalized so that I'm just practicing non-distraction more often, right? It's really tricky.
Yeah. And, I know you do a lot of work at the intersection of trauma and that experience for a human being and what happens in our bodies when we have experienced trauma. And really, every human being has experienced some type of trauma. What is the role that you see distraction playing when you encounter somebody who has had a traumatic experience?
Yeah, that's a great question. I mean, the thing that comes forward for me right now is just a lot of compassion, because when we even try to define trauma, it's really challenging. It's different for everyone. But what trauma means to me is that you had an experience that your nervous system couldn't process, whether it was situational because of your developmental age, whatever it was, you didn't get a chance to resolve the natural ability that we do have to process events that blow us out of regulation. And then it gets encoded. And again, that window of tolerance model is very helpful, because it shows you how if you live in the margins of self-regulation for long enough, things that aren't directly associated with the event you experienced can trigger you, can activate you. And so, in other words, life becomes narrow. And whether it's a physical limitation like a brain injury or my recent leg injury, those kinds of injuries throw your body off balance, literally. You get less feedback from the sensory system that things are okay. So you're walking around with a little bit narrower tolerance to all kinds of stress. So that's one piece of it. When it's emotional trauma, so-called, some kind of, you went through a divorce or something that happened that wasn't a physical tissue injury, you're experiencing difficulty processing that. And then if you get enough things piled into that stress bucket that you can't tolerate, you might find yourself struggling to do things like go to, a live concert or sit in a restaurant and endure the sounds of clanking spoons. Your system becomes hypersensitive or super shut down. So distraction plays a role because it's an escape. It's an avoidance strategy that dissociates us. Netflix binging is my drug of choice. Mm-hmm. And I can notice that when I'm in that behavior, I'm avoiding, I'm dysregulated. And just being able to read that without shaming myself for it invites a little light in for me to go on a walk, go get some movement, breathe. And this is where there's such an opportunity that we don't have to go dig around and talk about what happened in order to heal it. We need to be able to read in real time when we're like spun out and in some dysregulated, distracting, numbing behaviors, not shame ourselves, read it as information and go, wow, I'm really out of balance. Do I need movement? Do I need nidra? Have I eaten today? Maybe I need some nourishment. When's the last time I drank water? These are not small things, and these are not, usually offered. They're offered with some shame. Like, you got to live healthier instead of like, whoa, this is your doorway into yourself.
Yeah, it's that feeling overthinking thing that and being overdoing. And these are all of the paradigm shifts that I've applied in my life that have allowed so much more wisdom to come in, because when you're in that highly sympathetic state, and then I've also learned that I could flip really far down. Once I realized how high I was functioning in the sympathetic, then I almost learned, like I crashed and came down to that parasympathetic, and then you helped me bring that. And I had an injury in the middle of that when I was working with you. I was casted. So everything you're saying about what you take in, I resonate with so deeply because I have felt it in my own body. And it's amazing. I've helped like to watch, to find the language for it, and to be able to feel it and then find the language for it. And then, listen to one of my own kids say, I can't lay still for an hour, and just have that be an honest conversation, because it was an honest comment. And I went, oh my gosh. Wow. I mean, he had to be able to say it is one thing, but then now, where do we go with that? And like the realizing the level of distraction in his life. So, there's all the things you're saying, there's so much science behind it, but it's so practical to the way that we're living. And
it's super practical. Yeah. And if someone can't sit still for an hour, rather than shoving meditation down their throat, which is, I think, a cultural thing too. It's like, someone who's anxious, you got to calm down. It's like, nope, meet the body with what it wants to do. And maybe, as I know you and I have talked, like being able to offer and give that, like, let's go move. Let's just not need it to be blasting up into the atmosphere of high intensity. Let's just go move, nasal breathe, which keeps your system in that parasympathetic balance, but recruits enough arousal to like wake the body back up to life without having to analyze yourself or your situation. Because once you're into language like what you and I are doing, we're recruiting different parts of the brain to communicate. It's so valuable. But in the healing process, there is tremendous value to just following the body's lead without needing to articulate why you're doing it, what's happening. You know what I mean? It's like,
Absolutely. If you don't know how to find those cues, and I used to say this, I mean, I could talk my way through anything. And people would, oh, you got it together. And then I'd walk away and you'd feel like a fraud because you're like, oh, they think I have it together. I know I don't have it together right now.
yeah.
But I can talk my way through it. And until I came into my body, it was, you just didn't know. And then I remember playing volleyball one day, and when my nervous system was really healing, and I could see the court better, and I could decide what to do for the, like every point became more present. And it's just recreational play, but man, it's a completely different feeling. But until you've been there, it's hard to articulate. So what you do to teach people how to get into their bodies is just hard to find words for it until you've felt it. So you have such a gift. That's why I get so excited.
Oh, so do I get to learn when I get to share like what we got to experience together. And seeing you go through your foot injury has helped me with mine, because you had so much courage. You had to slow down so much and be so patient and all of the balancing and literally learning how to walk again with your gait. Did you get a time where it just clicked and you felt like I'm back, or was it a slow burn the whole time getting back to healthy?
Still a slow. It's been 2.5 years and I'm back playing volleyball. And not at the level, I'm 50 like you, so not at the level I was playing before my surgery, but you have the grace for yourself coming through a program like this to just appreciate your body so much and whatever it can do. So I don't think there's been one lightning bolt moment of like, I'm back, but I'm so grateful that I did what I did and that medicine helped, kind of fix the structural ailment. And now I'm just grateful for what my body can do instead of hurting,
Yeah, that runs deep, doesn't it? It's too bad sometimes we have to get injured to appreciate movement like that.
It's so, so true. So I want people to know what are the best ways to access you and Brian and the things that you're doing at Shift, because I know your work, as much as it's gotten out there, I want it to be just rolling through this universe, the things you guys are doing. So
that's awesome, Wendy.
What's the best way to access the things you guys are teaching?
Well, currently you can hop on our app for free. The app store name is ShiftAdapt. And there's some free resources in there, but that will guide people to the all access membership. And that's a way to just get started with daily movement, daily breath work, understanding some of our philosophies. But to really do the work, I would say Shift Health, the next time we offer that, that's going to be a phenomenal opportunity to be guided over a 4-month experience, 4 different modules that we just really put together a very intentional program to give everything we've got. So that's probably the best. And we don't have a date yet, but it'll happen in the next 4 or 5 months.
Okay. And are there any limitations for people to access that? Like, can you be coming from any walk of life, any physical, state?
Yeah, that's a great question. Because I bet, when you look at like Brian McKenzie, who's just like such a badass, you think like, is he going to make me work as hard as he works every day? And, or do I have to know how to do yoga or nidra? No, you can access our material from wherever you are, because again, everybody has their own unique nervous system. And we're looking at this from the lens of assess, intervene, retest, see what the effects were on your body so that you can interact with the edges of your self-regulation skillfully for you. So we teach some fundamental principles around reading your state, regulating your state, and that goes into physical practice, modern time and attention issues with screens, and learning about reality. And lastly, we get into the meat of elevated relationships, like how can we heal our connection to each other from this lens of owning our own container, reading our own intelligent body for what's right for us, regulating ourselves before we do damage to each other, and then communicating to connect instead of correct each other all the time, and really be fearless in those connections. So it's a curriculum that the people that I've brought through individually, one-on-one, it's like the most rewarding work that I do. Other than getting to teach, like we do live events for partners, private live events. So if anybody out there wants us to come to their gym or their yoga studio, the art of breath, the skill of stress, that's mine. And Brian teaches the art of breath. Those are some ways to get us, in the door with a group that you want to learn with us, because nothing's better than teaching in person.
You got to experience one of those when you guys are out in LA, and it's amazing. The experience of being around people that want to learn and are growing, and then getting the wisdom from you guys is like, I can't recommend it enough. So absolutely, I would tell people to watch for those on the calendar, because they're really
that
great.
Was a fun
yeah.
one. Oak Park was big. We had 45 people there.
Yeah, it was amazing 2 days. And then that's where I got acquainted with the open water. When you walk into these environments, you just see so much, and the way that the growth is all connected. And one quote I want, when I just heard you say connection, not correction, I did a talk for some special education teachers on that very quote, because of what you taught me. That quote resonated so deeply with the way that the world feels better. So when we can connect and not correct each other and not shame, I mean, it's amazing, and it resonates with anybody.
Wow. So, I love that you got a chance to give a talk like that, where it can ripple into some real powerful work.
Yeah. And that's the thing with what you guys are doing, is it really does apply to every walk of what people are doing out there. Because the better we understand ourselves, the more we can help other people. And so I love what you guys do. And I thank you so much for this time. I want people to go find you. We'll put all of your websites and app and all that in the show notes. And what a gift to get to have this conversation with you.
Thank you so much for your support. It means the world to me. I respect and admire you, and it's been a real privilege getting to know you. So thank you for your reflection. I appreciate it.
No, absolutely. I wish you all the best and continued healing, and I'm sure you will be up and at it again, skiing and doing all the great things you do.
Step by little step.
Yeah, exactly. So thank you again so much, and we'll connect soon, and I can't wait to get this out there for people to hear. Thank you for joining us on What I Meant to Say, another production of Inspired Edutainment, brought to you by Be Better Media.